So Jacob, I've got a great idea.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, considering that we've got one real person watching the stream, we're going to pretend that there's like a million not real people watching the stream as well.
1,000,000 to 1, hey?
Yeah.
We're internet famous.
Yeah, we can be internet famous. To the one guy in the channel, can you just pretend? Can you go and create 1,000,000 accounts and then subscribe? Just pretend to be all million people.
Yeah.
Also to the one dude in the stream. Oh, yay! Yeah, but I'm also in-person famous to a particular person in the stream. I wouldn't say I'm famous. I'm
infamous.
Notable. I'm infamous. Yeah, I was writing Word docs all day. He knows this to be true. Anyway, I can still see the stream starting soon thing, Jacob.
Yes. That is because that is what's up.
I was like, what's going on here? We would have had like a little bit of news like we normally do, but guess what? Neither of us bothered to
look
see if there's anything worthwhile. There's some new malware strain.
There was a new malware that uses Google Drive or something.
Some website's probably been hacked and lost your password. Oh no, there's been like 50 billion password breaches.
Oh yeah, there was that since our last stream.
Yeah. Too. And I was in both of them, and probably because like they're just part credential stuffing lists, and I'm in every single credential stuffing list that exists.
Yeah.
What's credential stuffing, you ask me? Well, it's you go and collect sets of usernames and passwords from all over the internet, put them in a big list, and then try and brute force them past websites. And you might get a 0.1% success rate, but it's a lot more low effort than Hashcat. Anyway, Jacob, tell us what you're doing.
Okay, today we're looking at SecNotes, the retired HackTheBox machine. We're starting off the same way as we always do with an Nmap scan. Because I'm dumb, I haven't pre-prepared these. So that's going to take a second to run. And while that runs, I'll run the other one as well.
Yep.
First one shouldn't take too long.
This one is a relatively interesting box.
Yes.
Also, behind the scenes, just in case things do go awry and I randomly disappear, we're trying something different. We're using Skype instead of Discord, and so when I see Jacob's screen, I see it at actual 1080p, not Discord. You have to pay to see anything higher than 720. So that is very nice. Also, I am grabbing the last video we did. I think it was Mischief to stick on YouTube. So
it also means we're at the mercy of Microsoft and Skype to work properly.
Skype is notoriously unreliable.
Okay,
sweet.
So we start off. We can see we've got a website and SMB open. So we pretty much always start with looking at the website.
Yep.
When Firefox decides to open.
Bit of context. SMB is also called Samba, and you probably see that on the Linux side of things is a file sharing protocol.
Yes.
CIFS is thrown in there. Actually, it's more than file sharing. There's like user stuff attached to it as well, but file sharing is kind of mostly what you'd know it for.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we get presented straight away with the login.php site. Since we've got a website, we can run a GoBuster in the background, and then we can spend a bit of time enumerating the site manually, just in case there's anything hidden. Look, the last GoBuster I ran was already against this. I'm gonna just add some file extensions. So we'll add PHP because we know it's a PHP site. We'll add HTML in case there's any static hidden HTML pages. And we also always do TXT in case there's some hidden passwords in a text file or something like that. So we'll let that run in the background. It's already come back with a bunch of things which look like they're only things that we can browse to anyway. So that doesn't matter. Actually, contact.php. There's no link to contact.php, so I've already found something.
Not that it actually matters for this box.
Not that it matters, but it probably could actually. If we ever got that far, it probably could have mattered.
Yeah.
So we got a bunch of web forms on the box. we've got at least a login page and a sign up page, so we'll try looking at that sign up page. It's got the functionality here, so why don't we try and create an account just to see if we can log in, just so we can log into the box and see what actual functionality the site has.
Did I just witness autocomplete kick in?
No.
Okay.
Did you?
Never mind.
Probably.
Never mind. I thought I did.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That could give away the next step.
I'll go incognito.
We don't want to spoil all the fun, guys.
That's going to be a super duper secure password, by the way. While we're here, because we're playing with forms, I always like to capture them in burp, just in case we need to run repeater or any of the other attacking tools against it. So again, because we're so internet famous and pro and prepared, I haven't got this pre-opened.
When you're famous, you don't need to prepare, man. You can just be lazy. It's
I think people prefer it that way, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it when people are organized.
Everyone likes to see the behind the scenes stuff, don't they? They're getting prepared.
You know what I would have liked to have seen in the latest Star Wars is, how they have the behind the scenes directors, whatevers, and interviews with the actors. If that was just interspersed to the actual movie.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny.
Yeah, this is how we actually operate. In fact, this is smoother and more buttery than how it really goes.
Okay, and we can see that the registration and login process do actually work, and there is a website that does a bunch of stuff. We can see that due to GDPR, there's a bunch of stuff that they recommend that we do, and there's at least one user called Tyler, which might be interesting for us to aim at attacking next. But we'll look at the functionality of the site. So we've got new note, which looks like we can create a new note. This is some content. And when we add a note, it dumps us back on the same page with the note in there. We can change our password, which is probably standard. Don't really need to look at that. We can sign out, and then this must be that contact page that we saw before. Interestingly, when we first did this, so a bit of background, I did this about 5 months ago, and my entire notes for the box was about 2 lines of commands, which made almost 0 sense when I came back to it. Because it was before we started all of this stuff. So, I never actually looked at this contact us page, so we're just going to ignore it in this as well.
It was pretty amusing because I hadn't done this box, and so it had gone public after I'd done it with. So before I'd done it with Jake, so we did it on Saturday just to get our notes together. And yeah, his notes were they made no sense.
They made 0 sense.
This is why when we do boxes now, we proper write-ups as we go, and then when it goes public, we merge our write-ups together and have nice write-ups instead of this absolute... you poor 999,000 imaginary people, you wouldn't have been able to do anything with them.
No, they would have been useless.
Yeah.
Alright, so we've got a note. We've got another form. We can try some basic SQL injection on these forms to see if we can see anything else. So basic... Oh, I was going to go incognito, wasn't I?
Don't worry about it. It's going to speed it up.
That's fine. I'll do it for the next bit because this doesn't actually do anything. So we can see here that if this worked, we would expect it to return something other than the text that we put in here. So that didn't work, but there are a bunch of other forms on this page. I'm just going to kill that.
So normally that kind of SQL injection works best on items that come out of a database that are where the query returns more than one result.
Yes.
So whether a query is designed to return a set of results, and you can stick a or 1 equals 1 or true or whatever on the end of the query, you will get everything in the table, because then the query evaluates to everything is true, I'll show everything. But where it's like a user login and it's only going to show you one thing, the messed up formatting is because it doesn't trust the fact that it's pulling stuff from elsewhere. Yeah.
It only does it incognito.
Yeah. Well, so the other sites are the places where it's pulling stuff from a HTTPS.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, ignore that. In a field like a note, the select, this text where this equals this. I suppose a 1 equals 1 would return everything, but it'll probably just take the first result and show you the first result. Either way, we found that there was only one place where there was actual SQL injection that did anything anyway.
There could be more in the forgot password or contact us because we or change password, and contact us because we completely ignored this and didn't go back to have a look. Anyway, so I was thinking about how to do this, and I figured the best way would be to kind of demo it and then come back and explain what we did.
Yeah.
So we start off with, again, this is probably the most basic SQL injection you'll find out there when you Google SQL injection examples. So we're going to start off with that, see what happens, and go from there. Our password we can make as anything, so we'll just make it as the super secure password. Submit that, and we notice that we get taken straight back to the login form. So it allowed that as a valid username. The next step is to actually try and log in with that username and password and see what happens. And as you can see, because this is so jank, I'm just going to swap to this one. Screw the autocomplete stuff.
So for context, that error happens because in the private tab, the stored cert trusts don't run, and because this is proxied through Burp, the CDN they're using for Bootstrap or whatever it is HTTPS, so the web browser freaks out and all the formatting disappears. So this is just to make it look nicer.
Yeah. And so
also notice what we get back.
So we can see here that we're getting back more than just, this is a brand new account, so we should have no notes in there. What we're actually getting is all of the notes in the system. So a good way of explaining this, this concept is called second order SQL injection. So straightforward normal SQL injection is sticky buns. I don't know what that means.
Sticky buns is the recipe. Remember Mimi sticky buns?
Oh, Mimi sticky buns.
The recipe that's there. We talked about this on Saturday.
We did.
It all looks like it's in US measures, which in a country that uses the only measurement system, US measures don't work so well. They get a bit jank.
Yes. So there's a amazing ingredient for Mimi sticky buns. If you want to try and follow the recipe, let us know how it goes. Anyway, so like Reese was talking about before, straightforward SQL injection is where you insert a SQL command into another SQL command and change the result, but you're expecting the result straight away. So when we were creating this note down here, we were expecting, for this to work, we were expecting it to return a list of, say all of the notes straight away without having to go to a different page or log in as a different user or anything like that, if that kind of makes sense.
So, so the first order would, second order is a theoretical concept. I think the things we found about it said you don't really see it in the wild.
Yeah.
First order is what you expect, where I'm trying to log in as an admin, And so say the website goes where the username equals this and the password equals this. And in the password field, you added all 1 equals 1. So it goes, the username is admin, and the password equals their password, or 1 equals 1, and it lets them straight in. That's first order direct injection.
Yeah, so here's an example I prepared earlier.
Wow.
So imagine...
Your syntax is a bit off around the post.
No, it's not. That's
the
PHP.
First post. You're missing a square bracket.
I'm missing a square bracket.
Yeah,
That's
man.
just a typo.
You can't get your PHP wrong.
That's just a typo. Yeah, so imagine for a poorly coded login page, you've just got select everything from the users where the username is something from the post and the password is something from the post, but probably hashed, you would hope at least. And then say what we're doing with our or 1 equals 1 is taking, well, in our case, the username, getting rid of all of this bit, adding in a, or 1 equals 1, and then adding a code comment. So that will actually comment out everything after this, and it'll be ignored as part of the SQL query. So now all that we're doing is grab all the users where the username is a or if 1 equals 1, which should be all users. We tried this as direct SQL injection in the login. Actually, we didn't demo that first. Whoops. So if we tried to just log in as that without actually creating an account first, it wouldn't have worked.
Well, if you change the string from the A to a B, you can demo that pretty easily.
So we can demo that really easy. We demo that and it just gets no account found. So
in this case, that is the username. It's not SQL.
Yeah, the login form itself is not directly SQL injectable.
Yeah. So
and this is where second order comes in.
So what happens is the developer was smart enough here to, if you go back to your PHP code, and just go back to the version that had the post parameter in the username field, they've wrapped that post username in like MySQLi safe or whatever it was in PHP, and it's escaped the asterisk that's been added in. So what happens is it's gone and it's stored in the database with a backslash in front of it so that it's now benign. The database won't see anything dangerous and it'll just literally store that string. Where this comes in handy is there's a second function, the one to list all of the notes. I don't know if you've got a mock query for that.
Yeah, I do.
Probably whip it up pretty quick.
So now, I didn't actually look at what it was in the background once we owned the box, but I'm just kind of making this up. It's probably something along the lines of get the node ID, the title, the body, and the creator from the notes table where the note creator is whoever we just logged in as.
Yeah, so it's probably not an post username. There's probably some, it's either from a cookie or stored in the server-side session or something.
Yeah, but it could easily be that too.
Yeah.
So now when we use our username again, it will unescape. Well, this time it doesn't escape the first quote, and it will add our comments back in. So then what we get is select the note details where the note creator is, say, a or 1 equals 1, which means it'll grab every note in the list in the table.
And this is because that second query uses the output from the first query in the database, and the guys assumed this data must be safe and isn't re-sanitizing it.
Yeah. So this doesn't even have to be from a post request. This could be from like a PHP variable as well. It could be username if it's got some kind of smarts to do processing in between the actual login page and the retrieve notes script, if you like.
My PHP was a long time ago. Potentially the stuff doesn't get unescaped when you pull it out of the database. So the guy for this box might have actively done it. Unescaped it to make this work. But the whole idea here is that the places where there is the potential for user controllable input which includes cross-site scripting, SQL injection, command injection, they're all in the same category,
Yes.
is more than just the direct place you put it in. It's anywhere you use their data in a form that is unsanitized. And this could be across application, so you have some old program that some back-end accounting person uses, and then you display that information. It trickles through a bunch of systems and you display that information to users in some shiny new system where the devs are like, we can trust the database.
Exactly.
And they're displaying garbage to users because they're not sanitizing the output.
It can happen with web APIs as well. You post you have to use a third party's API and you're just blindly trusting all of their data that they're sending or receiving. Anything basically any data that you're getting that you don't control, you have to be careful about how you store it and how you escape it and make sure that it's not something dodgy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I guess a brief overview of how SQL injection
Yeah.
And
so yes,
second order injection works.
Yeah, and second order injection again, fairly like the stuff we'd found about it is it's theoretical. There's not if it is in the wild, it's very rare because
it'd be pretty rare to actually find. I think, yeah.
The normally the way you apply the SQL injection protection for the initial for that primary way of getting in would prevent this.
Yes. Yep.
Anyway, let's have a look at some of these other notes.
Yeah, so we've got a few other notes. We've got the sticky buns, which we've already looked at. We've got a bunch of years, which we could make note of because they could be useful in the future. They could be used for passwords or something else. And then we've got new site. A new site has what looks like a network path and then username/password. I would assume that's what that format is.
Don't do what I did when I was looking at this and brain blank and think SecNotes.htp/new site was a website.
That doesn't work. I mean, it's easy to test, so it's obviously
well,
not
actually,
that.
It is that shows up later that it is a website, but this particular bit is pointing to the network.
Yeah,
so
if you've used Windows a lot, that's a common, I guess, like network path format. So, looking back at our Nmap scan, we remember that it had SMB open on port 445, and there's a nice tool called, I've got to find it, actually I think it's built in, SMB map, yeah, cool.
Yeah, and there it is, it's already there for you.
So we can use SMB map now that we've got some credentials to see what's on offer in terms of the SMB file shares on the server. I guess the command syntax, U for user, P for the password. We have to put that in a single quotes because it's got some special characters in there. I think like the and the star and the exclamation mark maybe screws it up. And the H is the host. So we're looking at 10.10.10.97. And we could see that we've got no access to admin or C, read access to IPC, whatever that is, and read write to new site.
IPC, I think, might be inter-process communication or named pipes or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think it's a legacy thing for pipes and shared resources. Anyway.
Sweet. So, we know that we've got, with these credentials, we know that we've got read-write access to some file share on this server. So that looks like a good logical next step.
Magic.
Yeah. Built into Kali there is SMB client, which it's also going to remember because I only did this on Saturday. So the syntax here, we have to escape the backslashes. That's why there's 4 instead of 2 here and 2 instead of 1 here. But that's basically saying connect to this share and use the username Tyler. Then it asks for Tyler's password, which I need to copy paste. If I can actually grab all of it. Paste that in, and we get access. Doing a dir. It's pretty straightforward. It looks like it's just an iasstart.html and iasstart.png. which is suspiciously like an IIS website or web server home directory. I think they call it inetpub in IIS.
Yeah.
So we're looking for another new website that instead of giving us a login form, it gives us the default IIS start HTML HTML file, which brings us back to our all port scan. So we did our go buster and everything against port 80, and we weren't able to find this new site anywhere on port 80. After our all port scan finished, we can see that there's also another port called on 8808, which Nmap is saying is Sports Bcast, but if you then go ahead and run the safe scripts and enumerate versions against these three specific ports, it'll come back and say that 8808 is also HTTP.
Yeah. At some point, 8808 was either allocated to or commonly used by something else that is called SS Sports Broadcast. S Sports Bcast. Jeez, I can't talk much. Words.
Talk many words.
Yeah.
I'll just run that against the shouldn't take too long.
Cool.
So hitting that port in our browser, we can see we do in fact get a IIS start HTML and a, here we go. So there we go. We've got, it's an open HTTP Microsoft IIS server. Easy. Now, we also know that we've got write access to this and that this is IIS. So initially we started off trying to add some default or IIS default pages, which is ASP and ASPX. They didn't work. We tried HTML, that did work. Obviously we've got a HTML page being rendered right here. After that we moved on to PHP because our other site was PHP. This one might have PHP installed as well. And we get a hit with PHP as well. So this is a IIS server with the default ASP stuff not enabled, but PHP is enabled. We have a common just open the tab. Built into Kali, I think it's in SecLists. There's a cmd.php which has I think we've used it tons of times. Pretty much every time we try and get a PHP reverse shell, well, not reverse shell, it's kind of like a command execution shell, web shell I think they call it.
Yeah.
We can see it's super basic. It's basically echo system calls whatever we pass it in either a get or post request. This is just because then we can dump it into things like burp and make it really easy to change the value of this. And it'll run whatever we pass it against the system in like a shell, basically. The one that I use slightly modifies this just to wrap it in pre-tags so that it looks nice, because things like new line characters and stuff like that are usually not rendered by the browser very well. But when you wrap them in pre-tags, you don't have to view source. They're just it keeps all of the line formatting and stuff like that. So we'll create a new. Next, we'll create a new one. Doesn't matter. There. Are you proud of me? Not a single issue with using Vim.
Nice one.
We're in the right folder. So now the SMB syntax, if you need help, you can just type help. But it's very similar to FTP. If you want to add a file, you do put. cmd.php would help. So we'll upload cmd.php to it. Running it there now, we can see it's got that there. And if we try and browse to it, oh, not .php. I have to do php.cmd. And so this is using a GET request to run any kind of command. We'll start off with something easy, like a dir, and we can see that we get nicely formatted output of our current working directory. Another useful one we can run is who am I, to figure out who we are. And this website doesn't run as a IIS user or INET user or anything like that. It runs as the Tyler user. So now, from here, we got to figure out how to get a reverse shell. Now, on this box, there's tons of different ways. It doesn't block MSF Venom or Meterpreter or anything like that. So we could, if we were feeling lazy, we could generate a payload through that, upload it, run it, and go from there.
However, on Saturday, we decided, it was ages back, and again, 900 odd thousand imaginary users would remember this, but the one real person probably wouldn't. Talks about how at some point it'd be good to learn what it takes to write a Windows reverse shell, because on Linux it's relatively easy. You can either do it with Bash relatively simply, SH relatively simply, Python, Perl, whatever.
Yes.
Windows doesn't come with Bash, so if you've got yourself a low privilege shell, you can't just give yourself an easy reverse shell with that. Reverse shells and PowerShell are surprisingly verbose. I think we did one a while back.
Yeah.
That basically leaves sending an executable over, which is what Meterpreter does.
Yeah.
And I decided to go and have a look, and it turns out it's not that hard.
No, it's
all
really
this time. I rather than 100% just copy and paste the good write-up we found on how to write a Windows reverse shell, I typed it out word for word. Actually, you could probably bring it up.
Yeah, I will. We'll call it rep.c.
Yeah. So it is. I did put it on GitHub.
A link to it's in our write-up.
But this is basically so that particular URL for the blog post. So the script-dosh one, kind of is what most of this is kind of taken from.
Yeah.
I sat there and rewrote all of it just so I could understand it. But that's where it originally comes from. I added in some random. So what it does is you copy it over to the server and start it up, and at random intervals it will try and beacon back, which is what it's called as beaconing, back to your attacking box to set up a reverse shell. And if it can't connect, it'll error out and then sit there for a random amount of time before trying again, hence that random interval function up the top. Also, that is not good randomness. I just grabbed something off Stack Overflow to prove the concept. You'd probably want to use secure randomness.
C developers.
Yeah. So if this thing is sorry, I was just looking at the comments on Twitch. So if this thing was running in someone's network environment and they're watching their firewalls for funny connections, the randomness here is potentially predictable. So you'd probably want to use some more randomness, because funnily enough, computers suck at randomness. Yeah. And then it just goes through, tries to make a socket using a surprisingly old Windows library this one used. We did have some issues getting this bad boy to compile.
Yeah.
And then
it was actually harder to compile on Windows than it was on Linux.
Mostly for two reasons. One, and you'll find this if you try and compile this in Visual Studio like I was, is don't use Visual Studio, use the CL compiler that comes with...
Compiler.
I don't know what the CL means, but CL.exe that comes with Visual Studio, because that'll include statically link the networking library that this needs. Otherwise, use MinGW on Kali with all of the extra flags you have to give it.
Yes.
And bam, it's perfect. So,
so the good thing that we like about this shell is, the fact that it's a persistent shell. So if our reverse shell dies, like Reese was saying, every random interval, it will keep running and try and phone home again, so that if we're listening, it'll keep connecting until, we've set it to try, after 10 failed attempts, it'll just kill itself. But
that was mostly so that when I was trying this on my PC at home, I didn't add in the hide window. There's a extra function in C to just not display a console window. I didn't add that in, but I didn't want to end up with this thing just impossible to kill. So
Yeah.
I added it. It'll kill itself after 10 tries, but that can all be removed. That was just me for convenience. But we can probably give it a compile and give it a shot on the server.
Yeah, we'll give it a run. So it was... Now, this is the command, except it's not called that. It's called...
That's what it was called on Saturday.
That's what it was called on Saturday, exactly. Yeah, so this Ming32 doesn't come by default on Kali. It came by default in the PWK VM.
If I have a look at my... I'm just quickly hopping onto my Kali. If I have a look at my history, there's a ton of stuff you have to install.
Yes.
Crap. Apps.
Yes.
Not a ton of stuff. Two things. You have to install like the MinGW 64 i868 dev, and then you install the actual thing, and that got it working.
Yep.
Cross compiling's fun, hence all of the extra flags.
Yeah. And so basically all of these extra flags help suppress warnings and certain things because it's some pretty dated libraries, like Reese was saying. It also merges constants and statically adds a bunch of libraries so that if the machine running the executable...
It's only the WS sockets, or whatever it's called, or WSA library, whatever library that was, it has to statically link. Again, if you compile it with CL on Windows or Visual Studio, it comes out in what I call a big chungus version, if you're aware of your memes, at like 87 kilobytes. Compile it on Linux, and it's 13 kilobytes.
Yeah.
So obviously it's far more efficient with how it statically links that other library rather than just chucking the whole thing in. But anyway, I've probably already spent too much time explaining some arbitrary stuff.
So long that the SMB has wiped itself. So there is some kind of scheduled task on the box that wipes this directory, probably just because most CTFers are lazy and never clean up after themselves. And unfortunately, some of the box makers have to put it on themselves to do that.
For clarity, the way we clean up after ourselves is reset the whole box.
We just reset the whole box, So we'll start from scratch again. We'll put our cmd.php and we'll put our rev.exe, I think I called it.
Yeah.
It'll tell me if I'm wrong. Cool.
Set up your reverse shell.
They're both there. We set up, I did double check. My port, my IP address hasn't changed since Saturday, so it's still 14.3, which is handy. I can listen on 1337, which again is what I don't have it open, it's what we had by default in our rev.exe. It does take command line arguments as well if you want to set them to whatever you want. And basically now all we do is run rev.exe.
Please work.
And
there we go.
We get a callback. And we can see we've got a shell as Tyler. Looking at C, oops, that's the wrong character. I left, oh, okay, it's a bad shell. That, it probably, is there a which equivalent for Windows, like to say which Python, to see if Python's installed or anything like that? Probably not.
No, there's the dir search thing.
No,
They have to do.
Screw that. I didn't ever look at if Python's installed or getting a fully interactive reverse shell. I just left it at what we've got, because what we've got is enough. So we can cd into users. Look at what users we've got on the box. We've got
So, user called Bandit on the Twitch has suggest checking the root C drive if there's a Python install there.
Oh yeah.
For Python 2.
No Python.
And then trees and program files.
Yeah, we could look in there as well. I'm gonna have to quote that on. Nope. It's not gonna quote either. Okay, fine.
Oh,
you don't
yeah.
have to quote it.
Yeah, I don't remember having to quote path names.
You do in Linux if it's got space in it. That's all I was
Yeah, I know.
thinking.
Not Windows.
No, not Windows. Doesn't care. Yeah, so nothing in there. Is it x86?
Yeah.
And no, nothing cool in there.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're stuck with the shell that we've got. Users, not user. Going back to our users, we can see we've got an admin, which is our end goal. We are Tyler, and there's another random user called Wayne. Seeing if we can get into any of these directories. Obviously Wayne we can't get into. Administrator we can't get into, but Tyler we should be able to get into. Looking at Tyler's directory, we can see we've got our standard Windows user home directory setup. Flags are always on the desktop, so we go into there, have a look, and we've got our user.txt.
Yeah, and unlike what I did last time, where I go, there's the flag, goodbye, and the flag was a, I'd forgotten that the flag on that box was a decoy and it was somewhere else and we had to hop back on it.
That was pretty funny. I don't know how to, I don't think there's a head equivalent on Windows to just show parts of the flag, so trust us, we can read that as Tyler about that. I guess interestingly, something that I didn't really notice last time, there's this bash.link shortcut to bash. If we head back to our C, you must have to head back to we can see that there's a ubuntu.zip file, which is not normally there as part of the Windows file system, if I recall correctly.
You'd be correct.
When the way that I figured this out was when we first logged in, and I guess because I did it so close to actual release date of this box, we get a banner of what version of Windows this is. When you Google this version, or like this exact version number of Windows, it says that it was a Windows 10 release in August 2018. And in August 2018, there was still a lot of hype about the Windows 10 Linux subsystem. Python could actually potentially be in the local user app directory. Oh, there you go.
Yes, Python on Windows is an interesting beast. And anything on Windows is though, especially, what was I dealing with?
AppData.
So AppData is the general place now that if you're installing something in a user context, because new modern Windows, like writing to program files is fairly locked down, so a lot of apps just write to AppData for their entire program.
Doesn't that go to my local AppData then? Why would I have permission to? Anyway, doesn't matter. Sidetrack. Yeah, so the way that I noticed this was, there was still a lot of hype around being able to install Linux on Windows 10 as a subsystem through the Windows 10 store, or the Windows Store, whatever you want to call it. So seeing that Ubuntu and the bash.link on the desktop was kind of my hint to say maybe this has the new Linux subsystem stuff installed. So I went off and researched that for a bit to figure out where it actually installs it to, and it is a messy directory location called that. No, this is actually going to fail because this is taken from the Windows documentation, so I'll just update that in something else to add Tyler to it. But everything else gets installed into not the same path. Awesome. Alright, let's start at the top. I thought it was exactly the same, maybe it's not. Let's just start here. Alright, so hitting here we can see that we've got a
Oh, there it is. The canonical, yep.
canonical group, so we'll CD into that. Good. Do this, and we get a bunch of folders. So the actual root file system
Local state, was
is
it?
in local state, yeah. Then root fs for root file system, I assume. And we can see now we've got what looks a lot more like a root Linux file system. From here, we're after the root flag because we've already got the user flag. So we head into root and see if the flag's hiding in here, and we get nothing. What we do get though, and what we have used in the past on other VMs to nudge us along to the next stage, is a bash history with content. I doubt if this was forwarded to devnull like a lot of boxes are, it would probably just say it's a 0-byte file rather than actually give us the whole pointing to devnull thing, because we're actually on Windows, we're not on Linux. It's type, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're just going to echo out the contents of that file, history, and looking at what we've got on here. Looks like he's mounting a C drive, or going to a mounted C drive, opening up users, making a file system directory, installing a few things, mounting C drive as administrator, sudoing a bunch of stuff, and then finally SMB, using SMB client the same way we did.
So what that looks like is someone trying to get a network share working. And you know how I know that, Jacob? Because I'm pretty sure I years ago had bash histories that look identical to that.
Yeah.
Mounts. So the modprobe sifs, he's looking to see if the sif stuff's installed on so modprobe tells you what kernel modules are loaded, and he's looking to see if sifs is loaded. Then he's looking to see if SMB client's installed, and then he's installing it. So he's obviously looking for the easiest way to connect to an SMB share, and that's what he's done. And then he's done the big no-no, and that's sticking the password in line with the username.
Yeah.
Generally, so MySQL, another example of this, just pass in the username and it'll prompt for the password.
Yeah.
And when it prompts for the password, it doesn't end up in your bash history.
Exactly. The same way we connected to Tyler here, we only passed the username and it prompted for the password. Yeah. We could have added a -p or used the same formatting to include the password in this connection string, but then again, the password would be in our bash history. So yeah. He's pretty much given us everything we need to get admin access to this box. The only difference is we don't want to connect to localhost. We want to connect to 10.10.10.97. So running his exact command, we can see that we're in. This isn't a shell, so I can't do like a who am I to prove that.
But you can access the administrator desktop.
We can, yes, we can do that. If I added CD, that would help. Fun trick, you can also use leaving space and commands and it won't let you. Oh, there you go. I did not know that.
Ah, that is a fun trick. You learn something. On Saturday, Jake learned how to Control-Shift-C and Control-Shift-V to copy and paste in bash.
Oh, there you go. It doesn't.
So,
cool. Learn something new every day. Yeah, I was always using Control-Shift-Insert to do pasting, not realizing that there was an actual paste command. So That's always fun. Oh, right, we're not in a shell. Why am I trying to CD anyway?
Yeah, you're an SMB, mate. You're dirt.
Duh.
You're dirt.
Duh. I'm a dirt.
You're dirt brain.
Dirt brain. Alright, so, is there a way to navigate around there? I feel like there was. There is CD. You just can't do... Oh, we're already on root, I guess. The file system root. So we'll CD into users, then we'll CD into administrator, and because we're on Windows, it doesn't care about... it's not case sensitive. CD into the desktop, because we know where to go to... Well, we know where we're looking for flags now. Do a dir on the desktop, and we can see we've got the root.txt. So yeah, that's the box. This is an interesting one because it's got a good initial foothold in a fairly, well, it's still rated the number 1 in the OAuth top 10. It's just kind of grouped with other injection types, but we use SQL injection to get in initially. And then obviously a lazy developer or just a careless person saved their password into a note on a website. We're able to use that to connect in, get a shell as the user, and from there use at the time this was a new feature of Windows, the Linux subsystems, to look at the bash history, get some admin creds, and finally SMB again back in and steal the flag.
Good times.
Good times. We did it.
The other interesting thing to know that you called out, you mentioned on Saturday when we were doing the write-up for this, was that the Windows and Linux do file permissions very, very differently. So pretty obvious in this context. It's Docker containers on Linux, I suppose, are in a similar boat. If you root, you can view the file systems of Docker containers. This is a similar concept where it's a sub-file system, and as long as you have Windows permissions to view it, you can view anything. So if you've done it the wrong way around and you're expecting there's some level of isolation from other users, that's not really the case.
That's true.
I mean, you're probably not going to use it for that, but it's, also important to note that with NAS drives or NAS shares, as soon as you start messing up permissions that stuff gets mounted as, it's a mess if you've got a mixture of Windows and Linux boxes, like a Plex server talking to your network share, and you dump stuff on it from a Windows box.
Yeah.
And if you've got the mounts all wrong, it screws up pretty quick. At least it did years ago.
It might be better now. Yeah.
Anyway, that was that. Another 52 minutes, man.
Punchy. Under an hour.
Yeah.
We could start doing speed runs.
How long was the I didn't remember thinking it'd be cool to try and automate an entire box.
Well,
just go, today we're gonna hack this box, enter. 10 minutes later, there's the flags.
There
or
is
2 minutes later.
Which one was it? Now that I know how to do it, there is one that I did that I could probably do in 5 commands, I think I worked out.
Nice.
And it took me 3 days to get the box, but now that I know, in about 5 commands, I think I could get the root flag.
A CTF golf.
yeah, CTF golf. Figure out who can do it in the least number of steps or commands.
Nice one. Cool. Well, thank you very much for tuning in.
Yeah.
Yes, golf
claps.
Golf claps indeed. Very polite golf claps. Yeah, you'll have to do it in golf clothing though. In that, oh man, you know what? Unfortunately, when I think of golf, I just thought of Donald Trump, and that is an image that is powerful, and not in a good way. Not to get political. Let's move on. This isn't a political forum, Reese. No. Anyway, that's that.
That's that. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good one.
We'll see you next week.
Stay safe. Yes, next week.
Bye.
Same time. Bye.